Let's talk about efficiency for a minute. If you do any kind of leadership stuff ever, you're going to hear the term efficiency. Efficiency is something I'm not great at, but I try to be mindful of. And whether I'm writing or doing media or whatever, learn to be efficient. When we worked with the Young Voices folks, we always told them, whatever your process is, you got to be efficient. Military, we had the saying, fast isn't fast, smooth is fast. Get efficient with whatever your process is. That makes you faster and makes you better, makes it more fun. So when we go to the DOGE stuff and Elon Musk and the government, I just want to focus on the word efficiency for a minute because it shows you what a total shell game this whole thing is. If you're going to fix something like the federal government, which has bloat, nobody's arguing there isn't bloat in the federal government. It has too many people in some roles, not enough people in other roles. It wastes money on lots of stuff and doesn't get money where it needs to go. Nobody's debating any of that. The problem you get into is, well, we're going to make it more efficient. I will tell you, and if you stop and think a minute and take the cult of personality out and the politics and all that, just understand a couple things. If you've been in any kind of a work environment, team environment, whatever that involves more than one person, a church, a social circle, whatever the case may be, you know what the most inefficient thing possible is? Chaos. The least efficient thing you can do is to foment chaos. Chaos is badly inefficient. Chaos wrapped around one singular person is even worse because what happens is, and a lot of you may have had a boss like this. I've had bosses like this. They're the worst bosses to work for. You're so busy making sure you placate your boss that whatever the actual job is, the mission is, the task at hand is, you have to spend time away from that to keep the boss placated all the time, and it makes you inefficient at your job. All this stuff Elon's doing with the stupid 5-point email and all this, and firing people indiscriminately and then bringing them back, and then RIFing them and then bringing them back. This just creates chaos. Chaos is never more efficient. Chaos is just chaos. Chaos means you have to spend time putting out fires. You put your people on edge. You're never going to get your best out of people in purposeful chaos. Now, people can rise to the occasion, and that's a whole different thing. But if you're just purposely creating chaos and going, well, we're going to get the best out of people, no, you really don't. You get people in survival mode and you burn them out. And it doesn't matter if they're a government employee, a private employee, civilian, military, puppet on Sesame Street, whatever. People have limits. And when you keep people on edge all the time, you're going to get a certain kind of performance from them. But that performance is not efficient because guess what? Keeping people on edge all the time, that's not sustainable. And one of the other key things to efficiency is, can this be sustained? Can you have continuity from person to person? The Doge stuff has a lot of layers to it. But the narratives around it are just ridiculous. Elon Musk does not care if the government is more efficient. Let's just get that out of the way. Somebody who has, almost $20 billion in government contracts is not really concerned with government spending or government waste or whatever. You can go back, and there's people that have done this research now. Elon Musk has been very, very online over the last few years. I talked to somebody that's out in Silicon Valley that knew younger Musk business wise recently on background. They didn't want to talk publicly. That's fine. They talked about how much he's changed. His personality hasn't changed, but his viewpoints have changed. And a couple of people, and I don't want to call them out because I didn't ask permission, but you can go online on social media. People have actually curated the stuff Elon Musk has done online, on Twitter especially, over the last few years, and the accounts that he boosts and the accounts that he retweets and comments on. And it was, even an observer like me, I didn't do all the scientific stuff. It was just obvious. He was really, really intaking a lot of content from some of the worst grifting accounts on the right of the political spectrum. He was just inundated. And you are what you intake. So if you intake that enough, you're going to start spitting it out. So you start getting all the conspiracy theories and stuff. So he's interested in placating those people, and the ideology he has really started pouring into his own brain. But mostly he's just data mining the federal government. Let's put a couple things to the side. Can you use an algorithm to find inefficiencies? Sure, you can. Can you use an algorithm to tell whether somebody's doing their job accurately or not? No, you can't. That's one part of it. One of the biggest problems DOGE is doing, and I've talked to probably a half dozen of them now, the actual managers that run these departments, they got completely bypassed. So now they're having to scramble and go, yeah, these certain jobs, you can probably get rid of this, but this one person, none of this other stuff works without this one person. You got to let me have this one person to make this work. That kind of stuff doesn't show up on an algorithm. You don't have team dynamics in algorithms. Um, a way to think about this algorithm stuff and this idea that AI completely makes things more quote unquote efficient, since that's the word of the day we're working off of. Think about sports. Analytics has taken over sports, especially baseball, especially basketball. Analytics has taken over to the point that the actual game on the field and on the court has changed a lot. Football's getting that way too, but it's a little different because it's so much more physical. But the thing that analytics can never do, or AI or algorithm, because it's all the same concept really, they can't tell you who's super clutch in a big moment, who rises to the occasion, who can just exceed their physical limitations in a moment and perform. So sports that are strictly done by analytics is a product nobody wants to watch. That's why baseball had to go change all their rules, because analytics said, well, you just have this and this and this. Basketball, especially the NBA, is really struggling right now, and college has become unwatchable garbage because analytics say just jack up threes nonstop, and it makes for a ball game that's basically unwatchable. It's okay if Steph Curry's doing it because he's the best shooter we've ever seen, but if you get, multi-directional state launching up 45 threes and hitting six of them, that's not a good TV product. Nobody really wants to watch that. That's the limits of analytics when it comes to managing people. And I think it's really funny that 5-point email came out from an email address that said HR, because anybody that's had to deal with HR, I've worked with some really good HR people. I know a very, very good HR person who I have a lot of respect for, um, who makes a whole lot of money out in the Bay Area doing exactly that for a lot of these big name tech companies. My last job that I actually had, I was actually hired through the HR person who found me and recruited me, because they're like, we're trying to build a culture, we're trying to change stuff. You're the kind of person I need. I'm going to hire you through the HR process, not through our normal process. HR has a good role, but HR has also been a byword for people who don't understand what you do at work coming in and telling you what you do. They made a whole movie about this called Office Space. If you've never watched it, Elon's watched it. He's been quoting it. He's acting like he's living it out. We can talk about that some other time. We need to shrink for that. But Office Space, it was HR coming down and telling you, what is it you do here? And Elon Musk seems to have really taken that to heart. But the thing about HR is it's not really super efficient. It can't be, because their job is oversight. Their job isn't to be a technical expert on whatever the field is. Those people have to work. Here's another word for the management class: together. You know what's efficient? Teamwork. You know what's efficient? People all the way up and down the chain of command, or an organizational structure, or what have you, being on the same page of what's going on. The reason the DOGE stuff's going to fail and be a disaster isn't just because they don't know what they're doing, although they don't, and not because it's politically and personally motivated, because it is. It's because nobody else is on board with it. They're force feeding this into the program, and you'll have people online go like, yeah, you got to shock the system. Okay, shocking the system, if you have a dead body and you bust out the paddles and shock it back to life, that's a good thing. It's also a last ditch thing. If you're just shocking people to shocking them when you don't really need to, that's not helpful. That's torture. And you're not going to get, wait for it, efficiency out of those people. And in fact, one of the problems with all this chaos is people that are in the government system, the good people, they're going to be leaving it in droves because they're not going to want to deal with this. A lot of those people are like, well, I'll stay for the government for whatever reason. They're going to reach their limits of what they're going to deal with. Now, a lot of the people online are going to go, great, we need to fire all the federal workers. No, you don't. That's silly. That's childish talk. You need to probably reassign some. You probably need to fire some, lay some off, redistribute them, whatever word you want to use. But this is where keyboard warring gets you in a big old hurry. Do you really want to fire indiscriminately massive swaths of people? And this DOGE stuff is looking like it's going to be one of the biggest mass firings in modern history if it all goes through. I also think it's going to be a little bit of a shell game. If you look at remember the fork in the road thing, they were going to be paid through September. Why are they being paid through September? Well, because 1 October's new fiscal year, and they're going to have to backfill all that stuff so the whole government doesn't collapse. So there's a little bit of a shell game thing here. I'm guilty of it too. So here's what I'm going to encourage folks to do. If you care about responsible, accountable government, I do. I talk about it all the time. I think smaller government is a bad way to say it. I know that's been the thing since the Reagan years. It's been kind of a, part of the rights catechism and on talk radio. We need smaller government. You can't have a small government in a country with 330 million people and growing by the day. You can't, not with 50 states, not in one of the most demographically diverse countries in the world. There's no such thing as small government. We need to get spending under control. But if you got to understand something, the numbers they're throwing out, even if you took them at face value, the interest on the national debt is almost 900 billion a year, and that's getting ready to go up exponentially. So if you're not dealing with the actual drivers of our national debt, like entitlements and things like this, then you're blowing smoke up people's butts. And by the way, Congress right now is hashing out the new budget and concurrent resolutions on spending. Just go look at that. They're going to increase the debt. In fact, they got to raise the debt ceiling just to do it. So this is all just, this is jingling the keys of the baby to get it to quit crying so they can go back to what they're doing. Nobody's really serious about government spending here. They just want to redistribute it, redistribute it, redistribution. They want to distribute it. If I can finally get the word out, we got to laugh at ourselves a little bit. They just want to redistribute it to where their political and personal goals are met a little bit better. And the people on their side will be great. We need to get rid of spending on X, Y, and Z. All right. Just remember, next group people come in and we got elections coming. They're going to come in and go, well, look what they did. We're going to move it back over here. You know what that is? It's really inefficient. Our politics are so reactionary right now. Trump was a reaction to what was going on, and Hillary Clinton. Biden got elected as a reaction to Trump. Trump got elected as a reaction to Biden for losing the ability to speak and his cognitive decline. Whatever happens next will be a reaction to Trump again because Trump's numbers aren't doing real good, his popularity numbers, which are never high, and they're dropping. And the economic stuff, by the way, chaos is really bad for the economy. You know what works really good efficiently? The economy. You start tinkering with it, bad stuff happens. So there'll be a reaction to Trump too. Reactionaryism, really inefficient. If you want to be efficient, you have to be mindful, you have to be purposeful, and you have to know what you're doing, and you can't be reactionary. And the politics and media of our time demand us to always be reactionary, never to be mindful, not think of it through too awful much, and just go do it. Move fast and break things. You know what move fast and break things isn't? It'll get you a big profit in a startup or a tech company. Long term, you know what it's not? It's not very efficient. And the US government is this giant oil tanker that moves very slow. The Leviathan thing is real. Yeah, it needs trimmed down. Yeah, it needs to be remolded and remade. But you know what you have to be to drive something that big, that heavy, moving that fast? You better be efficient because real rapid movements aren't going to end well. And there'll be people online that'll cheer it right up until somebody they know and love gets fired or their government benefit check doesn't come because that person and that system got jacked up in the process, or the economy crashes, or it affects them personally. And then they'll start going online at the same time and going and blaming somebody else and wonder why it all happened. You know what that is in your social media practice? Besides being hypocritical, it's really inefficient.